We are exactly 2 weeks out from the scheduled start of Donald Trump's first, possibly only criminal trial. It's the one in New York, and the ex-president is seeking to derail it and delay it by any and all means possible. In court documents filed today, his lawyers argued that Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg's case against Donald Trump should be paused until the Supreme Court weighs in on the scope of his so-called presidential immunity. They are set to hear arguments on that issue on April 25th. Trump's lawyers argue that prosecutors have suggested that they will introduce, quote, several types of evidence that implicate the concept of official acts for purposes of presidential immunity. Part of the potential evidence that they argue should be precluded from being used at trial include Trump's public statements about Michael Cohen, because they argue he made those statements in his official capacity as president. We're back with Andrew, Lisa, and Donna. Lisa, translate.
This is a Hail Mary to end all Hail Marys. We've got jury selection starting in 2 weeks. But more importantly, Nicole, I just want to take a step back and let our viewers know Donald Trump waived an immunity defense in this case months and months and months ago. He tried to float it in trying to get his case removed to federal court. It was soundly rejected by a federal judge. He initially tried to appeal, and when he realized that that appeal would conflict with arguments he was advancing in the 14th Amendment cases, he withdrew that appeal last November. And now, suddenly, 2 weeks until the start of jury selection, he's not saying he's immune from the entire suit because he knows he's waived that argument. What he's saying is because the state intends to introduce evidence about statements that he made when he was already president, this court should wait to hear the scope of his immunity defense, if any. We know that oral argument is not until April 25th. There is no valid presidential immunity defense as applied to Trump's tweets about Michael Cohen, for example. In fact, the entire case is about personal acts. It were things that Donald Trump did to disguise the fact that he had engaged in campaign finance violations with Michael Cohen and others, including the folks at the National Enquirer. There's nothing official about that. When you are acting in your capacity as a candidate and thereafter to cover up what you did as a candidate, that's inherently not official. And yet they are making this horribly specious argument and at the same time telling Judge Aileen Cannon in Florida that they need more time in her case. Why? Because they're going to trial on March 25th as they attempt to adjourn it. They are playing judges off of each other with a sort of casualness that's almost breathtaking.
I mean, I guess, Andrew, I've stopped asking why they do it because it's clear that it's working. Will this work?
I agree with you. This is one where, you know, as defense counsel, if there's like a 1% chance that something might work, assuming that you have a good faith basis, you know, you may make the argument. With Judge Cannon, it's working. With the Supreme Court, it is working. I do not think it'll work with Judge Merchan. I think that the defense knows it won't work with, that is the judge who's overseeing the New York criminal case, but I'm sure they're going to appeal his ruling and see if they can get the case stayed, which, just to be clear, is not the action of an innocent person. Someone running for office would normally want to clear her name, would not be sitting there saying, I don't want a criminal trial. They'd be saying, I didn't do anything wrong and I want my day in court. So here you've got the reverse. You've got the government, whether it's Jack Smith in the D.C. case or in the Mar-a-Lago case or Alvin Bragg in the New York case, they're all wanting a day in court. That's actually providing the defendant process. They want to give the defendant his day in court, and Donald Trump is saying, whoa, I don't want my day in court. I do not want to have a forum where the facts and the law will matter. I'm happy to engage in adjectives and adverbs and just what I say about the case. I do not need people to hear any other story.
Well, I mean, his public statements aren't even to really deny the facts of any of these issues that he's facing legally.
Well, this is what we expected of Donald Trump, and especially as these cases emerged in all these different jurisdictions, that he would use his ability to play these cases off of one another, to play the judges off of one another, and to continue to make his argument publicly because he knows that it's working for him politically. And so no surprise there. But I think the challenge is going to be trying to figure out how to get one of these cases into a courthouse by before the election rolls around. And it may be that this March 24th date is the one to do that.
I mean, Andrew, I think Nikki Haley started publicly talking about the need to try Trump for his alleged crimes. Chris Christie's campaign, I believe, had some polling that showed that if convicted by any of these, in any of these trials, that the bottom falls out of his support. You look at how hard he's fought not to be on trial anywhere. I mean, what does the Supreme Court say its reasoning is for hearing what is, as Lisa just said, a specious legal argument about immunity? I mean, this is absolutely stepping into something that Trump is telling all of us he doesn't want to happen. He doesn't want to face any accountability in the legal system as anybody else would, as his own followers did for their crimes on January 6th. What is the other side of the equation sort of say to itself, or say in law school lectures or in dark rooms, or I don't know, wherever people like that hang out?
So there's sort of two issues. There's the issue of the New York case and the motion that was just made. I am confident that the judge, the lowest court, the trial court, will say no. But then there's the issue of whether some higher court, up to and including the Supreme Court, would stay the case based on the arguments. These are much, much more frivolous, as Lisa has pointed out. But to your point about why is the Supreme Court doing what it's doing, unfortunately, I think that the answer to that is, although what's before that court is just the issue of presidential immunity, that's an important issue, but that's one that both sides should want to have decided quickly. The whole point of it being heard now is because, and not waiting for a trial, is because both sides normally have an interest in having that decided very quickly, because the government obviously wants to get through that and go to trial. The defense usually is saying, Donald Trump's saying these are I should not be under indictment at all. I should not have a gag order that's hurting me from campaigning. So he should want it quickly. But I think what he is doing, and what the Supreme Court has abetted here, is not having a trial at all.
Yeah.
By staying, is really not looking at the issue before them, but looking at the big picture, which is not actually having a forum to hear this case. But I do think with respect to the New York case, it is a much harder argument for the Supreme Court, for some federal court, to step in and say that these charges, what is the actual charges, do not relate in any way to conduct that Donald Trump took in his official capacity as president of the United States. It is simply not the case that paying hush money to a porn star to keep information from getting to the public in a campaign, remember, that was the goal, to get it out of the public discourse in the campaign. That is not a presidential function. And it'll be very hard for anyone to make that argument. And using evidence that comes from a time frame that Donald Trump was president is not something that is precluded just because you happen to be president, any more than if he was president and said, I sexually assaulted E. Jean Carroll, or I paid hush money to a porn star. The fact that he said it while president does not make it immune from coming into evidence.
Do you think
Makes you feel any better? I have already put EVAC on alert. He's ready to go if it comes to that. General, I can assure you.
Hey, General, let me into the war room to see you, so I had to hack my way onto this frequency.
This better be critical, Wheelie.
So, come on, what is it now, please? Okay, couple of things. I'm running low on the dough. I was thinking about taking a couple of months sick leave, maybe starting today. And, oh yeah, I intercepted a transmission from Megatron.
Then send it through.
Yes, sir, right away, sir. And so I'll assume that we're going on the other stuff.
This is your last warning, insects. Relinquish what remains of the Allspark.
So who's the insect? You? What? Who's the insect?
Protect you. They were defeated on our world, and we will defeat them here.
The Megatron.
And this was just a diversion. Security, please bring him up. Ravage, he's already inside. Deeds! Give me an update on that reserve. Boss readiness. What was his name? What was it?
Evac, sir.
Right, evac.
She's right in front.
We're facing a heavy sustained attack. They appear to be after the All-Star. General! General! Hold on. National security stand down. Check it out. The resist operations. The amateurs for suicide mission.